Good morning, Breakfast with Bacon fans. I have with me someone who my guests have seen before and have requested to have back on again. So for those of you who know, this is Zachary King, former Satanic High Wizard, which was the days of his past, because he is madly in love with our Lord, our Mother, and experienced a miraculous conversion, which on the spot allowed him to know that God is real, Satan is not as powerful at all, and that the Catholic Church is real. And he is here today to talk about a lot of what we're seeing going on in society these days, because if there's anyone who understands demon, is someone who used to be a part of that community. So first of all, Zachary King, welcome yet again to the Breakfast with Bacon show. Love having you.
Thank you. I love being here. This is one of my favorite shows.
Oh, thank you. Well, we had fun on the show. Plus we had you at our conference last year, Disrupting the Culture with Truth, and that was well received as well. So may God continue to bless you in your words.
Thank you.
So I wanted to start with, we've got this thing going on, Zachary, with demonology, this infatuation with the demonic. We see a lot of things going on in society today that really, to me, and many people who talk about it, can only be controlled by the diabolical. Let's just start, though, with the infatuation with demonology and things. Right now, we have two movies hit the theaters this weekend about Satan. One is The Pope's Exorcist, and one is Nefarious. I've only seen Nefarious, have not seen The Pope's Exorcist, though that one was written about Gabriel Amorth, Father Gabriel Amorth. He was the exorcist, probably the most well-known in the world before he passed away 10 years ago. Can't remember. But I heard that there are at least 5 other movies coming out this year about demons. And it's like, what? So I just kind of want to start right there. What is going on? And what do you think is this infatuation with Satan or demonology or the diabolical?
Well, it's not a recent infatuation. I mean, if you remember back in the day, we had Rosemary's Baby. We had The Exorcist. I mean, The Exorcist is like one of the scariest movies I've ever seen. The Exorcism of Emily Rose, The Brownstone, The Sentinel, all the old Vincent Price movies.
Oh, I remember Vincent Price, yeah.
He was my favorite.
Yeah.
Peter Cushing. Who's the Lon Chaney?
Yep. You're showing your age.
I am. There was a guy that was even Boris Karloff.
Boris Karloff, yes.
Boris Karloff was the master. That guy, he looked creepy anyway.
Yes.
And he did like the old Frankenstein, and they all did the old Draculas, but all those things are satanic. Putting body parts together to make another human being without a soul, that's satanic. Having a creature that's undead, that sucks blood, drinking blood, is satanic. And goes around seducing women so that he can have a bunch of women at his bidding, and sucks their blood to stay alive. Again, that's satanic. There's so many aspects and we've had this isn't new. This is something we've been fascinated by forever, ever since we've had movies. I mean, what was the first vampire movie? Nosferatu. It was a silent film. It was a bald vampire, and he was really crazy looking.
I didn't see that one.
It's a silent film. So it's got subtitles, and this guy looking really super creepy, and it doesn't even really look like he's wearing makeup. But he's got to be wearing prosthetics or something, because there's no way his ears could be that big and he could have vampire teeth, and he's bald, and he just looks really creepy. But I mean, that was like one of the first silent films.
But the difference to me, because I'm 58 and I remember all of that except for the silent ones, is you are right now telling us, oh, well, that's demonic or that's demonic, and going, oh, okay, I can make those connections once you point it out to me. But it was more hidden. And right now, the devil movies are in your face, like in Nefarious. It's a conversation between a guy on death row who says he's possessed by Satan, and you can see when Satan kicks in and when the guy speaks himself. And straight up, I'm the devil. The Pope's exorcist, this is the devil. I know, yes, of course, we had Linda Blair in The Exorcist back in the 70s, and which was obviously the devil. But now it's just coming out obvious in your face, and almost as if Satan has all this kind of crazy power.
Well,
and he does, right? Have some power.
At one time, when the early Westerns were out, obviously not satanic movies, but the good guy dressed in all white, and the bad guy dressed in black. Then eventually the good guy wore a white hat and the bad guy wore a black hat. But there's always been that distinction. And even in our creepy movies, the bad guy was hidden. He was always behind a wall, behind a curtain, hidden from view. It was a long time in certain movies before you saw whatever the monster was. And it's not that way anymore. Now it's almost the first scene of the movie, there's the bad guy.
Yeah.
And the bad guy isn't, I have a favorite quote. And for me, the quote came from a character named Verbal Kent in the movie The Usual Suspects. But I've heard it also attributed to Archbishop Fulton Sheen. It's the greatest trick the devil ever pulled was convincing the world he doesn't exist.
Right.
And he has shied away from that now. He's not hiding anymore. He's bam, he's in your face. He's like, I'm here. It's like, why is everybody running? It's like, I'm here, I'm your friend, dance with me. You've been dancing with me for thousands of years and you didn't know it. Now you know. Why are you scared? But we court him in Hollywood. In Hollywood, we have so many scary movies, so many creepy movies, even movies that aren't overtly satanic. You have like the paranormal movies. Those movies are about possession. But we don't look at it like that. We're like, oh, it's just a crazy, scary movie.
That's just Hollywood. Hollywood's doing that. Hollywood. That can't be real.
Yeah, it can't be real. And it's like, it absolutely is real. I've seen things in movies that I've seen in real life.
Like what?
We were watching one of the paranormal movies. I think it was the first one. And the woman was asleep on the bed. And while she was asleep, the sheet got pulled off of her. And she's asleep. She's not moving. And the sheet just yanks off of her. And I've seen that in real life. Yeah. I've also seen somebody, I was watching another movie, and it was like a police thriller, but the police thriller had demonic overtones to it. And the guy that was in custody, the demon threw him up against a wall. And there's no witnesses to any of this, but it is on camera. And so later when they looked at the camera, they saw this happen to him and they couldn't understand what they were looking at. But I've seen things like that. I've seen people thrown up against walls and held up there, or dropped to the floor, or before they land on the floor, they're kicked across the floor. Demons are real.
Can you tell us a little bit about this? Because some people have not heard of you. Some of the people that watch my videos, because I'm growing, praise God, and subscribership. For those of you that haven't yet seen Rodney King, listen to me, Zachary King, go and look up.
Can't we just all get along?
Right. No, go in and type in Zachary King in the search bar of my website, breakfastwithbacon.com, and you'll see part 1, where he talks about his life as a satanic high wizard, how he got there, his youth, and part 2, which was life immediately after, how God was using him. And you'll understand more of the details of the story. So, but for those people who haven't heard of you, let's just do a quick synopsis. You had somehow risen in the ranks to satanic high wizard, maybe some of the things that you recognized, how'd you get out of it? And so give it a cursory glance.
Okay. I started practicing magic when I was 10. I become a Satanist officially at 13. I joined my first coven. It was an OTO coven. I committed my first assisted abortion at 14. I graduated high school at 18, went to look for another coven. I joined one in college, but it wasn't good enough. I wanted a real coven. The coven there was just kids away from home for the first time and looking to have fun. I found World Church of Satan, or Satan's World Church. And at that time, they had 1.1 million members worldwide. I joined that. I did about 5 more assisted abortions and was picked to be their high wizard when I was 21. I stayed in that for 12 years. I did 146 assisted abortions total. I helped split 120 churches. Now that's split, that's not destroy. And pretty much every sin under the sun, and included I was in porn for 4.5 years. And then I escaped out of Satanism, being tired of what I was seeing, and kind of lived off the grid for a couple of years, got back on the grid, kind of looked over my shoulder for most of my life, trying to be away from Satanism, still addicted to magic, did magic every day, couldn't get rid of that, but I didn't join a coven, and I didn't do anything like that because so many covens are connected. And then one day I was working in a mall, and I was in a jewelry kiosk. I was a manager, and this woman came up to buy a pair of gold tooth earrings. And she said, "I'm actually shopping with my daughter. When I'm done, I'll come back and buy these." And 3 hours later, she came back, made the purchase, did the transaction. I gave her a receipt, and I said, if you call the 800 number on this receipt and take a survey, you might win $1,000. And she said, "Oh, great, I've got something for you too." She pulled out this little gold cheap colored piece of tin. And I was like, "I don't know what that is." And she said, "It's very powerful." Like, there's no way it's powerful. And she said the weirdest thing I'd ever heard. She said, "The Blessed Mother is calling me into her army." And I thought, ISIS, Gaia?
Mhm.
I don't. And so then she goes on and on. She starts talking. I just go to my happy place. And I'm thinking, how do they all find me? There must be a sign above my head that says crazy people come here, and only crazy people can see it.
Right.
And eventually I tune her back in, and she said again, "It's very powerful." No, you're challenging me. You're saying this can touch me. I'm the high wizard. I have got the power to touch anything and tell you that it's been blessed or it's been cursed. This has a spell on it for money. This has a death spell on it. So I'm going to take this in my hand, feel what it has, which is going to be nothing. And then I'm going to toss it on the floor, slam it on my counter, and tell her it's worthless. I take it in my hand, clench my fist around it, all ready to tell her these things, except when I do, my store and my mall completely disappear. And I'm in this darkened void, and this woman tells me about the magic spell I did last night, and that's of the devil. And I've split over 100 churches, and that's of the devil. And I've done over 100 abortions, and that's of the devil. And then she tells me about 9 or 10 other sins, and ends everything with, and that's of the devil. I'm terrified of this woman. I was going to attack her with magic, but now I realize her magic is stronger than mine. There's 7 billion people in the world. I could have been the only one high wizard, and I did not have the power to transfer 2 people to a darkened void and know all their sins. Her magic is stronger than mine. And then she says again, "The Blessed Mother is calling you into her army." And instantly I knew that was the Mother of God. And when I knew it was the Mother of God, Mary showed up. It's the most beautiful woman I've ever seen. I was acutely aware of my 146 assisted abortions. And she smiled at me. It was a smile I knew I did not deserve. And she took me by the hand with the metal in it, turned me around. Divine Mercy Jesus was standing behind me. I didn't know what Divine Mercy was. I had these rays of light shooting around me and over me and through me. And in that moment, I knew everything that was cult, satanic, new age was false. And that I knew that Jesus was my Lord and Savior. And I knew that everything Catholic was truth. And I knew that I had not sold my soul to the devil when I was 13. And the Blessed Mother told me my job was to help her end abortion. And I opened my hand and I was back in my store. And this woman, Marianne Wickman, gave me the address of where she goes to Mass. And her daughter came back up to the counter and she said, could you bring this man one of each of everything? And so then while we were talking, her phone rings and it's Father Joe Whalen. She had just told me she was Father Joe Whalen's personal assistant, and he doesn't even have time to talk to her. And so she answers the phone. She's like, hello, Father Joe, what can I do for you? Can you hand the phone to the young man you're talking to? So this time he's going deaf, but he talks like everybody's going deaf. So I heard everything he said. And so she hands me the phone. I take the phone. I'm like, hello, welcome to the faith. Hand the phone back to Marianne. So I hand the phone back to her and he hangs up on her. Then we get 2 more phone calls like that, 2 other people. And then her daughter comes back in with a paper grocery bag that has like 125 Lighthouse Catholic media discs in it and a bunch of pamphlets. Why do Catholics do this or believe that? And a Catholic Bible. And then that day I went home and told my wife, I walked in the door, she's doing the dishes. I walked in the door and I said, hey, honey, guess what? I'm Catholic now. She had grown up Jehovah's Witness and was not very happy with me being Catholic. But she did support me enough that the next day when I knew what time Mass started and all that, I started going to daily Mass.
The very next day. That's what's so amazing to me. And that story just goes from there. God has used you. You've traveled the world. You've spoken for the faith. You've gotten abused. You've lost your sight. You've lost one leg. You've got diabetes. I mean, Satan is trying to attack you because he hates that you've gone to the other side. And, you know, God, as we talked in our video last time, is God allows you this suffering and you feel it's just part of making up for some of your purgatory time.
Well, I mean, hopefully I'd rather be blind here than have to serve any time.
Absolutely. Well, and you took part in Divine Mercy Sunday. So every sin you ever committed and your purgatory time, which to me, I could cry just thinking about it. For those of you that don't know about Divine Mercy Sunday, you've got to learn because it's your new baptism day. Anyway, but you know, that's where you are. This is your experience.
The Jubilee year of mercy was 2016. So the Pope enacted mercy doors all over the world, and I got to go through 7 of them.
Mm.
So all my sins from then on back were eliminated. The purgatory time is gone.
It's amazing.
Everything I did as a Satanist is wiped out. And then I spoke at the National Shrine of Divine Mercy on Divine Mercy Sunday. It's the biggest talk I've ever done. I mean, we had 17,500 people live on site, and then it broadcast to 1 million people around the United States and 50 million people around the world. I'll probably never top that unless God wants me to.
Exactly.
I'll never top that.
Well, and that's why you have a lot of credibility. I mean, the stuff that we talked about before that obviously we're not going to duplicate this time really gives you an expertise in this crazy demonology we're dealing with. I know the Bible talks about at the end times, the demons would be released from hell. And it is my understanding, I'm not exactly sure, but that 1/3 of the demons have been locked up since the fall. And that it's appearing to me, I could be wrong, I'd love your perspective, that God's opened the gates and just like, okay, guys, you wanted to approve everything. You want to take God out of schools. You wanted prayer out of schools. You wanted to approve contraception, approve gay marriage, approve everything that goes against me, approve sodomy. This is it. You've turned away. And so I feel as if the demons have been loosed. And that's part of what we said at the top of the show. Satan doesn't care anymore, but in my perspective, his time is short. And that's why all of a sudden he's like, oh, the heck with it. Let's just go and do everything we can. Right. Yeah, go ahead. Speak to that.
He's coming out full force You know, like he's shooting those with both barrels because he knows his time is short. But you know, as far as the demons coming out of hell, I've heard that they get released every time there's an abortion.
Yeah.
I've heard exorcists say that.
Wow. Which
You
is
know,
so sad.
there's all around the world in every time zone, there's consecrations to the devil for all of the abortions of that time zone for that day. They start, it's an extended black mass. It starts at midnight, which is the witching hour, and goes to 3 a.m., which is the devil's hour. And this happens, like I said, every 24 hours in every time zone across the world. So we're currently working on a project. It's my ministry, coupled with some of the exorcists around the country, coupled with priests all around the world. And we're working with, and Father Frank Pavone, because he knows priests all over the world. So he's working on this project with us to get priests to say masses during those exact times to contradict the consecration prayers, because the consecration to Satan is how he's gaining his power. You know, getting all the abortions consecrated to him. So we're doing masses during those times and prayers during those times to nullify those, so at least he's not getting any more powerful.
Yeah. So when you say Satan and the demons, are they two different people? I mean, there, how many demons should we assume there are?
Okay, they say that there's, for one person, for every person that's ever lived in the world, there's at least a demon, because there would have been demons that in all 9 choirs of angels. And so there would have been guardian angels enough for everybody. So there should be, what do you think? There's been about 50 billion people?
Yeah.
That's 50 billion right there.
And
Plus
say,
however many more there are in other, I mean, if 1/3 fell and there were 50 billion guardian angels, and that's 17 billion.
yeah.
Plus,
And Padre Pio said, because he could see demons with his own eyes, that that if we were to line demons up shoulder to shoulder, they would eclipse all light. And so, you know, the idea that they exist, Satan is their master and the demons are, there's a hierarchy, and
right.
they just, you know, do what they're told to do. And of course, in an ugly way and a prideful way and stuff. But, you know, when you wrote your book, abortion is a satanic ritual, they attacked that. Overt Satanists came out and said, oh, this doesn't happen. And yet now in the news, we're hearing that.
Right. Now the Satanic Temple says abortion is a satanic sacrifice.
Yeah.
And if you live in a state that doesn't allow abortion, you can go on their website, join the Satanic Temple, and they'll give you prayers to say before and after your abortion that will make it a religious ceremony, and you're protected under religious freedom.
Wow.
And the Satanic Temple is also opening their own abortuary in New Mexico, I think.
Yeah, and they're naming it the Samuel Alito Center. Isn't that the one? Because he's the one who helped overturn it, and they can't stand him. And they're like, yeah, if abortion would have been legal, this guy could have been killed, but now look what he did.
Right. They're saying that his mother should have murdered her baby in the womb.
Yeah. Should we be afraid of Satan?
Why? You know, I say in my talks, why would you be afraid of the biggest idiot in the room? You had heaven in your grasp. You were there. You were in heaven.
You looked upon the face of God.
And you decided, no, I think I'm better. I'm going to do something and get kicked out and never be allowed back in.
Yeah.
Because I'm the smartest one here. How's that feel? How's that working out for you?
But he does have power. Yeah, he's an idiot and a prideful being and went against God. I mean, it's just completely stupid, but he has power.
Okay, look, you've got the cabinet maker and you've got the cabinet. Why are you afraid of the cabinet?
Right.
Couldn't the cabinet maker destroy the cabinet?
Yes.
Couldn't he burn it and start it over again?
Yeah, but there should be a healthy respect for the power of the devil because God, the cabinet maker, gave it to him. And the reason I guess I'm bringing this up is some people are like, oh, Satan can't get me. And they tempt him. They test his power and they kind of invite him into their lives just because they don't think he can do anything. So I think in that sense, we need to be afraid of the power that he's got because God gave it to him. But what I hear you saying is, however, God's power is greater. Don't be afraid of Satan if you've turned your life over to God. Yes.
I'm wondering why people are afraid of the devil and they're not afraid of God.
Right. Right.
I mean, God made the devil. God could destroy everybody. He could decide, you guys aren't worth it. I'd like to love you, but you make it difficult. I'm tired of you. You're gone. And yet we're not afraid of that because we're taught he's pure love. And we are afraid of Satan. God doesn't have to ask anybody's permission to do whatever he does. If he decides to kill any one of us, that's it. We're gone.
Yeah. Oh, and he will. He's taking every one of us. Every single one of us.
But Satan has to get permission. For him to kill somebody, he's got to get permission for it. And if he doesn't get the permission, he can't kill you.
So how does he get permission? So he gets permission from God because God's like, yes or no, you can touch his body, but you can't touch his mind, or you can touch his property, but you can't touch his body. So God gives him power that way. What about us though? I mean, okay, so I'm a devout Catholic, so are you. I'm not afraid of the devil, but I have a healthy respect for what he can do, but I'm not worried about it because I turn to God. You know what I mean?
Well, everything that happens to me, I offer up.
Yeah.
So I mean, if you're fine with attacking me, knowing that I'm offering everything up and souls are coming into the kingdom of heaven because you're attacking me, keep attacking.
Yeah.
Because this is what I'm going to keep doing. I'm not going to stop. I'm like the little Cristero boy.
Oh, yeah.
On the street and kept saying, I'm going to raise my finger. I'm going to raise my finger. And this is going to be praising God, even if you break my jaw. And they broke his jaw and he kept walking and moving his finger. So he was still praising God up until the time he was shot in the back of the head. I mean, whatever he keeps doing to me, I've lost one foot. I'm on dialysis. I'm blind. I'm diabetic. Something else could go wrong. I could lose something else. I don't want these things to happen, but if they happen, I accept them.
Do you think the fact that you were a Satanist and now you are a devout Catholic makes it easier for you to accept suffering because you saw Satan's powerlessness compared to God, or you did see like the magic and the things that happened, and you saw people afraid of him? But was that a help to you then because of it, now that you're like, why was I even concerned? Why was I even involved with him? What are your thoughts kind of in that direction?
I think things that I could do and realizing that none of that was me, thinking that I was all powerful, but I wasn't anything. I mean, even going back to, I could make somebody levitate. I could make myself levitate. I could heal people. I could make spells for money. I could make spells for somebody to die. I could do so many different things, but I didn't have the power to give somebody a blessed miraculous medal and transport both of us to a darkened void.
Yeah.
I couldn't know somebody else's sins. I couldn't read their soul. The things that I can do now, like we went to recently, there's a paranormal circus that's on tour and it's going around the country and it's very satanic and it's based in Italy and it's on tour in the United States. There's 3 of them that are on tour at the same time they play on similar nights, that the nights are connected. And on the nights that they play, on the nights that they have where all three are doing a night on the same night, because it's when they land in your city, they perform for like anywhere from 3 to 7 days. But 1 or 2 of those days will intersect with the other 2 tours going on. So when they have a day that intersects, all 3 places do a magic spell. And I suspect they have a high wizard traveling with them. So we went when it was here in Wichita a couple of weeks ago. And I went, and there's a guy in it that's a contortionist that somebody that saw it thinks that they're a victim of human trafficking. So we need to get, they're trying to get law enforcement to pay attention. And so far, law enforcement's not paying attention. So I don't know what the story is there, but apparently the guy is being trafficked as part of an act. And they'd have to get somebody that speaks Italian to be able to talk to him, because I don't think he speaks English. But they did a magic spell that night when I was there. Yeah, and I could tell that. Yeah, and that's one of my gifts now, is being able to tell if I'm close enough to somebody. I can tell if they're doing magic. I can tell if somebody's possessed. That's one of the things I do when I assist exorcists, is that I talk to somebody on the phone to find out how they got possessed. And I can generally tell the exorcist, yes, they are possessed, or no, they're oppressed instead. Or their house has an infestation, but I don't think they're possessed. But I also can pick out somebody that's holy.
Yeah.
I was in Brazil, and I was a guest of the Hesed Institute, and they were taking me around. I was on a speaking tour, and I was standing in this church, and I have two stories about that church. One is that at the end, we're getting ready to leave, and I was standing, back then I could stand. I was standing, and I had my blind man cane, and all of a sudden I'm bathed in a white light and a blue light. There's a blue light coming from the ceiling and a white light coming at me. And I can't believe no one can see this.
Mm-hmm.
Like I'm blinded by both lights. And so my translator comes over, and I said, who was just standing next to me? And he says, what do you mean? I said, somebody was standing right there. And right there, I had a white light shining at me, like this person was holy, like beyond holy. They like radiated the Holy Spirit, and shining down on them was a blue light. It had to be the Blessed Mother. And he said that was the Mother Superior.
Yes.
I said, you need to tell her that she's holy. He said, I can't tell her that. She'll cry. And she'll cry and she'll spend 3 days in adoration. And I said, well, maybe she needs to do that. I said, pick a nice time. Pick a time after I'm gone. So,
Yeah.
So that she's not, because I'm sure she wants to talk to me during this time.
Right.
So I don't want her to disappear for 3 days. So we were, when we got to this place, it had been raining for like 3 days. And we had to walk. You walk, there's a huge stage at the front of the church. Like it's elevated about 8 feet in the air, because everybody does their stuff up there.
Right.
The priest is up there at the altar, and then all the speakers are up there. And you want to be seen by the audience. In the audience, there's about 1,500 people in there. And so how you get up there is that you have to walk down this long corridor that's like at the back of the building, kind of almost, it's inside the building, it's behind the building. So you've got to walk down this long corridor, around, and then there's stairs in the back, and you climb up onto the stage. So we're walking back there, and we're all wearing socks and shoes, and except my wife at the time, she's wearing high heels. And they said, if you're in high heels, you might want to take them off and carry them because there's water in the hallway. And my hands are on my translator walking in front of me. He's pretty tall. And he's got a cassock that goes all the way to the floor. So he's holding that up and walking through. And he's wearing pants underneath it. So those are getting wet. He's got those rolled up. And he's wearing socks and sandals. So his socks and sandals are getting soaked. I'm wearing socks and shoes. Everybody around us is wearing socks and shoes. Everybody's talking about how cold the water is. I've got neuropathy in my feet, so I don't feel my feet. So I'm assuming they're getting wet. But, I don't know.
Right.
My shoes are made of mesh, so my socks must be soaked.
Yeah.
So we walk through, it's about a foot of water. And we've got to walk for probably at least 50 feet through water. You can hear us sloshing. Finally, we get to this doorway, open the door, and there's the stairs. We all go up the stairs. Everybody sits down, and there's fans up there. So they say that take off your socks and drape them over the fan, and they'll be dry by the time it's time to go. So everybody's doing that. And my shoes are dry. And my socks are dry. And the priest looks at me and feels of my feet. There's no water on them at all. There's no water on my pants legs. There's no water on my socks, nothing on my shoes. There's not even water underneath my shoes.
Wow.
And he says, oh my gosh, you were walking on the water. I said, I'm pretty sure I wasn't walking on the water, Father. And he says, did anybody see? Could anybody see him? Who was behind him? Who was in front? Was anybody standing beside him? And nobody saw it. It's pitch black in the hallway. You can't see anything in there. I'm blind, so I couldn't see anything.
Right.
I assume they couldn't either. But nobody else noticed anything. And my translator said his hands were on my shoulders. I didn't know. Yeah, I didn't notice if he was that much taller than me.
Right.
And so nobody could see it, but he doesn't have any other way to explain it. Because I'm walking behind my translator, directly behind him, and his legs are soaked and his socks are completely soaked. He had to wring them out. And his sandals are soaked. And yet,
well, somehow God supernaturally, whether you were walking on water or in it, and he created like Moses in the Red Sea, a wall of water to the left and to the right. Either way, he protected you.
Right. Or he just dried them.
Yeah, instantly.
Yeah, either way, no matter what happened, it was a God miracle.
Yeah, yeah.
It had nothing to do with me, except I was the instrument that he used.
Yes.
And it was like so incredible that I could be part of that.
Yes.
It was like, wow, thanks, God.
I'm glad you're working with an exorcist, because I'm still, and you've said to me before, but again, it's just sticking with me, this ability to see if someone's possessed or not. Because God doesn't want to give you any power that you don't use for his glory. So the idea that someone's possessed and, you can tell a priest if you need to, or, whatever. What a beautiful thing that is. I would love to, be able to see the halo, for instance, on people who are holy. And so what a gift that is what I'm getting at there. So you got to trust that's not vodka, right?
Oh, it is.
It is. Oh, geez, now I forgot I was going to ask you. So you didn't feel scared at all going to these? And again, I know the answers right? But I just want, there are some people going to watch. You're in the Satanic convention or whatever, and you just weren't scared. Here it is. You've been out of Satanism for 20 years or however many years. What was your reason for going? Just so you could see what they were doing, stay educated? What?
We didn't know. I mean, it's advertised as a certain thing. I mean, it's a circus,
Oh, okay.
and I wanted to see what it really was because it advertises that it's diabolical.
Who advertises it that way?
The company that puts it on.
They
It's
do?
It's the Paranormal Circus. They advertise that it's diabolical, satanic.
Wow.
Come see the frightening sights. Even when you're there, they tell you that you're going to see things that are at least R-rated, possibly X-rated, but there's children there, and so I don't know. I never was told that anything really bad was shown. I mean, I could see some of the stuff happening. It's a lot of aero acrobatics,
Right.
and things, and riding unicycles, on wires and things, and the contortionist guy, and different stuff happening, but nothing seemed. And there was a lot of red and black lights,
Yeah.
which are Illuminati colors, sirens, loud rock music. I kind of wondered if they had permission to use all the music that they had. Like one of the songs they used was Smack Your Bitch Up by Prodigy, and they used Thriller by Michael Jackson. I just couldn't believe that Michael Jackson's people would give permission for that.
Yeah.
There was a couple. Oh, there was a.
It's okay, but because you were in Satanism before, you could recognize it in maybe a way that I wouldn't have recognized it, like that guy who was trafficked or that you suspect was.
Right. There was also I think a song by Metallica in there that started the show.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, there were two other songs. My friend that I went with, she had to use her Shazam to find out what all the songs were. She didn't know any of them.
Wow.
And that's a person you should have on your show.
Well, we could talk about that later then. Let me know. I'm curious about something you said earlier about pornography, because I mean, obviously we can say Satan's everywhere. We get it. God is everywhere. Thank God for that. But what would you say are the connections between pornography and Satanism? Is there any time pornography is not attached to Satan? Would you say, I mean, because it goes against God's laws, any kind of time you have sex outside of marriage. And then we're doing the most horrific things, especially when we start looking these days at child pornography and
Right.
Homosexual pornography, transsexual pornography. I mean, it's just everything is like connects to those bad things in society. What do you know about those connections? Because obviously I remember that's how one of the ways you got into it when you were younger, when they used sex to lure you into the coven.
Right. Well, they had a female teacher sexually assaulted me at school. And then I confessed that to the coven. And because the woman had told me that if I told anybody, I would go to prison. I would be expelled from school. My parents would disown me. And when I got out of prison, I'd have to get a job. And so that kept me silent. And then I eventually told the coven what happened. And then one day I saw that woman in my coven.
Wow.
And by that time, I was in child pornography. And, it never occurred to me while I was in it that adults were watching this. Because when we watched it, it was all about a room full of kids. It was a room full of kids watching a video, or a room full of kids looking at magazines. So being told that I could be in those magazines or that I could be in those movies, it wasn't even a thought. It was, wow, other kids are going to be looking at me. Look at me. I'm in these magazines. These other kids are wishing they were me.
It didn't even strike you as bad back then.
Yeah, no, and it also didn't occur to me that a bunch of pedophiles were going to be watching. Like
Yeah.
we would get letters would come in, and it would be like a request. Like my name was Tommy in the movie, so and I looked like a little Hispanic kid, so
Be careful not to say what they asked of you for people watching. We don't know
well,
who's watching,
wasn't going to go into detail.
just in case.
They would request for Tommy to do certain acts, and they wanted to see certain things. And it didn't occur to me that these were adults that were asking. You know, 12 years old. I'm not thinking that adults are looking. Why would an adult want to watch a kid have sex?
Right.
You know, obviously it's another child.
But did you sense Satan? Because at this point, you didn't really realize you're in a coven yet, right?
Not yet.
Right. So when did you then, and do you still now believe Satan is part of every element of pornography? Because to me, I would say yes, because I'm thinking sex should only
Absolutely.
be in marriage between a man and a woman. So you're using these horrible, horrible things. And in some porn I've heard, like, what do they call it? The dark porn, or I mean, people are literally killed on film.
Snuff films.
Is that what it is? Oh,
Snuff film is when people are murdered on film. But there's no part of porn that's innocent. I
right.
mean, every part of porn will take your mind to a bad place, you know, and then child pornography makes you want to go out and have sex with a child because you're looking at it.
Sure.
How many times can you see a picture of that before your mind just thinks, I've got to go do that?
Yeah.
I've got to experience it. I've got to experience what that guy's experiencing. You know, and if you're thinking that that's wrong, nobody would think that. Well, then what about regular porn?
Yeah.
Because all of us have looked at regular porn and thought, I'd kind of like to do that. Or let's take it off porn. How about the Chrysler ad where we see that car on that screen and think,
I want to drive that car.
I need that car. I
Yeah.
need that Ferrari. I need that Lamborghini. I need that Corvette. I need that Viper. Or whatever that hot car is, if ads didn't work, they wouldn't be on TV.
Yeah, no, you're right about advertising. I don't want to name names, but I know a Hollywood movie star that everybody would know if I mentioned his name. And I have connection to him through someone who's been on my show who said this actor was going to be acting the part in a sex trafficking, where someone was going to be raided. And he said, I want to go on one of those raids because I need to see how they take place so that when I act it out in the movie. And he took part in the raid and he was able to get pictures or take pictures on his cell phone, and the horrible things that they saw, or, I don't even want to say it because I don't know who's watching, but dead children in these, their blood was all gone, and I'm trying to be evasive. And what they said, and that it was horrific, but what they said is the children coming in over the southern border and quite possibly the northern border as well, they are taken from their families, and their families know that they are told, here, we'll give you money for your child. We're going to take care of him or her in America. They're going to have such a good life. And the parents who can't afford to feed the child, give them a hug and a kiss and love them and can't wait to see him one day. But then they don't realize they put them into the hands of these sex traffickers. And what happens too is not just sex trafficking, is they cross the border so that these children can be used in satanic rituals. So they are being brought across the border just so that they can be killed and their blood can be used in these things. And this is 2023, and I'm hearing this and I'm like, how is Satan not wide? How are the gates of hell not open? So I know in the other show, what was that?
I don't understand how that there's so much evidence to adrenochrome being real, and yet people are still like fake news.
Right, because it's so real, so ridiculous that we can't possibly believe it's true. I know that was me years ago. I'm like, that's just Hollywood. And that's coming out. You're seeing Hollywood stars make jokes about drinking blood, and not even making jokes, kind of And you're like, why is that wouldn't even cross my mind, Zachary. And for them to like say several of them. So when you told me different covens did different things. Your coven was more about a ritualistic abortion. Some covens are about black masses. Are there some covens that are just about sex trafficking and this kind of stuff?
Well, my first coven was into human trafficking and child prostitution and child pornography. I was in child pornography when I was a child, and that my first any coven that embraces the name Diablo sex is into those things. And there's actual covens out there named Diablo sex. And if I was, listening to this and you're in law enforcement, I would look for that Diablo sex cult, because they're openly practicing human trafficking, child prostitution, and child pornography right under your nose. And they even advertise it with their name being Diablo sex. And you're walking around dum 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 dum, oblivious to what's going on.
Wow. How much more do we not know? I mean, is it all out in the open, or is there stuff that we should be watching that?
There's a lot of stuff that's out in the open. I told this happened a few years ago. It wasn't that long ago, maybe 2015 or 16. I got interviewed and I said that a lot of the human trafficking of children takes place. I said, oh, let me describe the area to you, and you tell me, just, think about where that matches what I'm saying. It's a white building. Now, it could be any color, and the paint will be faded, or it'll be white. It looks older, and it's usually flat, one story. It's fairly large, not mansion, but fairly large. There's a fence around it, and there might be toys out in the yard, but they haven't been played with in a long, long time. There'll be a van that shows up near the door, and kids will get out and run inside. When it's time to go, the door opens up, the van pulls up, kids get out and run into the van. You never see them in the yard. You never see them play. You might every once in a while see a child wander away, and he'll have a blank look on his face. He's not being told what to do, so he doesn't know what to do. And then they yell at him for being out in the open, and he has to turn around and run back in. And he's probably going to be punished for that. But does that fit any place you know? And somebody contacted me later that year and said that fit an area that they knew. They told law enforcement, and I think law enforcement was the FBI, but I'm not sure. Apparently they raided this place and discovered it was human trafficking and child pornography.
Wow.
Oh no, that was in Toronto. So it may not have been FBI, but it was their level of FBI.
It's just so horrifying, because even my own daughters have said to me, "Oh, Mom, you're so conservative. You think that nobody who's in porn wants to be in it." And I'm like, nobody. I mean, they might be convinced that they want to be in it. When you were a child, they're like, "Oh, look, this feels good." But there's no one that's not being abused or trafficked or manipulated in some way in that. And even if we could say, okay, maybe they voluntarily get into it, where there is porn, there is Satan, and we need to fight this. And we are, go ahead.
Even men that get on it because they think, well, this is easy money. All I've got to do is get an erection on film, and I can score $1,000 per porn shoot, or it depends on what you're doing, but anywhere from
Right.
$1,000 to $5,000. And this is easy money. I can pay my rent. But even that, eventually you're in there because you have a drug addiction, you got to feed it, or become addicted to porn or addicted to sex. You've got to do it. And Satan just keeps using
I was
you.
just going to say, and Satan he's being fed, but ultimately we only have a little bit left here, but God is ultimately in charge. I mean, what a miracle it was that he sent you, our Blessed Mother, miraculous medal. Here you are, Catholic. So God's got power over everyone. Right. To kind of turn this to a more positive note, and God is powerful in this society right now that is Satan drenched, where he's coming out in the open. People are infatuated, think it's cool. What should we be afraid of him? What should we do? If you saw Satan appear to you right now in the room, what would you say to him? What would you do?
Go to hell.
Go to hell. That's right. Because you're not afraid at all, because God has all the power.
I have full sleeves. This one is a Latin phrase. It says, "I fear no evil." He's, like I said, the biggest idiot in the room. You're not scared of God, who can kill you instantly, but you're scared of the devil, who has to get permission to kill you.
Yeah.
That doesn't make a lick of sense. He's out in the open. He's not your friend. He wants to kill you. He wants to destroy you. But not just all that, he wants to take you to hell.
Yeah.
He wants you to be out of a state of grace when he kills you. This SatanCon that's happening, I warned people from 2008 till last year that these satanic conventions happen every year. And everybody told me, no, they don't. We've never heard of them. They've never happened. You're making stuff up. You're lying about it. This kind of stuff isn't real. Satanic conventions are just fantasy. This is impossible.
And now they're out in the open.
And now they're out in the open.
Right here in my city. I'm actually right Virginia Beach and Chesapeake, but right here in Chesapeake, B.M. Williams Elementary School has an after-school Satan club, and my church prays outside of it every week.
I did a video on after-school Satan. I used to talk about black masses. Again, we've never heard of them. Black masses don't happen. They're not real. It's something of fantasy. It happens in movies. It's not in real life. Now they're all the time. And they're public. They do them at the Civic Center. And it's like, okay, so let's see. The black masses weren't real, but now they're in public. SatanCon, no, those aren't real, but now they're happening in public. What else?
Abortions. The abortions. They've claimed our ritual.
Satanic ritual. And I said it. No, that's not true, but now that's true. It's like, what else I got to say? What's it going to take to wake everybody up? What
instructions do you have, since we have less than 5 minutes? What instructions do you have for a child, a teen, or a parent of one of them, or anybody who's kind of dipped their hand in this stuff and you want them to get out, find God? Any advice for people?
Embrace your sacraments and your sacramentals. If you mess with the devil, you're going to get burned. It's plain and simple. It's like, sometimes it takes a child touching the burner to realize that it's really hot. And I don't want the child to get burned, but he's going to see that pretty light so many times, he's going to want to touch it. And I don't want the child to get hurt, but sometimes that's the only way to teach him. Just get close enough to it to get burned, to feel the heat. Maybe you'll be smart enough to pull away.
Yeah.
When I was a child, I wasn't smart enough. I saw that pink light and I wanted it. And I finally reached up on the stove and I touched it. And I was very sorry.
Yeah.
I learned to never do that again.
So to a parent who's got their child that has touched the fire and they think my son's soul is lost, he's got satanic tattoos on, what would you say to that parent? Same thing that you just said, the sacraments and the sacramentals?
Yeah, never stop praying. Prayer is so easy. I mean, even if you just did one Hail Mary a day, but get perpetual masses said for that child or for your entire family. It's the same price for the whole family as it is for you.
Yeah.
So why not? I get mine from St. John Cantius in Chicago. It's perpetual Latin masses. For a family, it's $110. But I mean, it's perpetual masses for the rest of the life until Jesus comes back. That's a small price to pay.
Could you tell when people were praying for you when you were, well, now or even back when you're into the dark side?
When I was in the dark side, I didn't know people were praying for me. You know who was praying for me back then? My Catholic grandmother. My Catholic grandmother prayed rosaries for me every day.
Praise God.
But I had no idea of that when I was Eye Wizard.
Praise God. When I left my husband for another man, it was my mother-in-law and my grandmother that were praying for me. And I know, and here we are happily married almost 40 years later. So God is God. There's so much we could talk about, but I just wanted to bring you on because there's this obsession with Satan. And I'm grateful that you, Zachary, helped reorder people going, God is the powerful one. Satan is not the one you have to be afraid of, but don't mess with him because he does have a lot of power that God has given him, though it is temporary. He's stronger than we are, but God is the strongest of all. And we need to remember that.
We're a creature. Satan's a creature. He's a higher creature than us, but he's just a creature.
Yes.
Not a god.
Yeah.
He's not powerful. You can't, ultimately what my ministry teaches people is to flee from the devil and run towards God.
Yeah. What is that ministry? We have very little time. What is that ministry? How do they find you?
allsaintsministry.org.
And all the words are spelled out. ALLSAINTS ministry.org. Right. And when they contact you there, they can look forward to learning and understanding what kind of stuff?
I've got over 100 videos. All of them tell you what to do if you've got a cursed object or find something that's cursed, or I've done something stupid, played with a Ouija board or something like that. A lot of instructional videos. I've got papers, Jesus Christ, the Water Bearer of Life, written by St. Pope John Paul II, which tells you not to ever do yoga.
Yeah.
That no Christian can do that. I've got a PDF of an examination of conscience. It's really good.
So lots of good stuff at allsaintsministry.org. Yes?
Yeah.
And if you want to get a hold of Zachary, obviously you can get through him there. He is blind, so he has assistants that help him. And I know this from experience. Just be patient. He will get to it, but he likes to answer as many of his emails as he can personally. I think you should bring him in to speak at your next conference. Right now, Satan thinks he's all that in a bag of chips, but bring in Zachary to talk about the truth about what's going on and remind you how powerful God is. Sometimes it's what the teenagers need to hear, because right now they're the ones that are the most tempted to
my email address and my phone number are on the website.
Mystic for God.
Mystic for God
at yahoo.com.
Yeah, that's my email address. And you can also join my newsletter
by going to that same website.
Right. And
excellent.
I've got a newsletter about once a month.
Excellent. I hate having to cut you off, Zachary, but we've got to go. I am just going to continue to praise God for you and ask him to bless your ministry, bless your marriage, bless your family. And, may your experiences having touched the fire, but then seeing the love of God, seeing our mother, and it transformed you, may that just win so many souls and the people watching. I hope you're encouraged to see how deep someone like Zachary was, and that God had a mighty transformation with him. And as I said earlier, if you want to listen to the show now, if you are going to listen to part 1 and part 2, part 1 is extremely detailed. We talk about the ritual abortions in these satanic ceremonies. So make sure your kids aren't around, but go to my website, breakfastwithbacon.com, and type in Zachary King. You can also just go and peruse the list and see the amazing guests God has brought me. I am trying to win 1 million souls for the kingdom before I die, but you can follow me on YouTube, Facebook, Rumble, Twitter, what are the other ones? Instagram. And if you have any idea for other guests or topics you'd like on the show, please go ahead and email me at Christine@breakfastwithbacon.com. And I will do my best at getting some of those people on here. But we do have to go off the air, Zachary, and I am so grateful for what you've done. Now, he says he's going to forget, but I don't think he will. Just want to remind all of you guys, I thank you for making the time to listen to Zachary and to me. Take this show, share it, and let's just do more work for the kingdom. Okay, Zachary, try really hard. Use your powers, right? The power of God is in you. So I am Dr. Christine Bacon. You've been watching Breakfast with Bacon, and I'd like to remind you always to live your life.
Sunny side up.
Yes, I need to do it.